Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, WTFW with another fiction. What if Deku a multiverse battle for power? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Well, a few people liked this in my multiverse story, so I decided to make it an actual fanfic. Most of this first chapter will be copied from that chapter, but I will also be adding in more details. So on with the show. Izuku Puff. Not all men are created equal. I learned that the hard way when I was just a child. Izuku think to himself, while a 5-year him is standing in front of a boy who was trembling. Opposite of him was Katsuki Bakugo and a few others. I won't let you hurt him, Kachin. What do you think you can do? You're just a worthless, quirkless weakling, Bakugo says, while sparking up a few explosions from his hands. He and the others then start attacking me and mocking me all the while. Once they were done, I was laying on his back with bruises and burns on my body. I still want to be a hero despite what everyone else said. But I often wondered what that could mean, Izuku thinks, now looking about 9 or 10 years old. I was walking back home sadly after another round of bullying from Kachin and the others in our class. Though sometimes I question what it means to be a hero. For most it is all about the use of their quirk and saving lives through using that. For others, it's about fighting villains with their quirk again. But don't some heroes don't fight on a front line? There are plenty who fight by making strategies to defeat villains. Maybe I could be a hero like that. I've been analyzing heroes since I was little. Maybe I can turn what I've learned into being a strategy hero. I just know I have to prove what I can do in some way. No, Puff. In a different part of Japan, a short bald doctor was analyzing a strange glowing cube. Sir, the master is still barely responsive. I doubt he'll ever be able to be his best again, the black misty villain Kurogiri said with Tamura standing behind him. The doctor nods before saying, a quirk may not. But if what I suspect this cube is capable of, we might be able to. The doctor demonstrated by using the energy of the cube to restore a broken machine, as well as restoring a damaged plant. Well, what are you waiting for? Please, heal Sensei, Tamura says desperately. The doctor looks to the boy, then the cube again. He sighs before agreeing. The doctor, Kurogiri, and Tamura went to a different room to meet the injured man inside. The top of the man's head was destroyed and was hooked up to multiple machines to help him breathe. This was all for one. Master, your injuries following your last fight with All Might are too great to heal with the science and quirks we have access to. But with this might be able to heal you, the doctor says to the slightly responsive man. A foe turned to the doctor and with a raspy breath says, do it. With a nod, the doctor set the cube on his master's chest. When it didn't activate right away, the mad scientist attached a few cords to it and ran some power through it. The cube then started to light up more and more. With the three observing, their eyes widened and were hoping the master would be revived. Suddenly the cube starts to float and glows brighter and brighter. Suddenly a bright flash covers the area, blinding all who could see. When the light fades, the cube is gone. But a foe was not restored. Instead, floating above the group was a woman with ghostly pale skin and hair. She had a strange bow and fox-eared combo above her hair, and was wearing barely anything over her chest and lower body. She had a teasing smirk on her face. But what was I catching was the mass of tentacles and futuristic cannons around her. So, were you the ones who brought me here? The woman said with an unsettling distortion to her voice. Most of them are unsettled by this strange entity. But Tamura stepped up first to say something. Who are you? And can you help heal my master? The strange woman looks to her side and sees a foe laying on the bed with machines attached. She hums before saying, you may call me Observer. Not that it will matter much longer. It is time for we Sirens to see what this world has to offer. She then points her cannons all around and unleashes beams all around her, vaporizing all the humans in the room. With that done, she looked around before her smile grew. Now then, let us begin. With a snap of her fingers, portals opened around her, summoning her fellow high-ranked sirens. The six then combine their energy and unleash a blast that destroys not just the hidden building, but parts of the mountain all around them. Suddenly, around the world, more portals open and various siren ships appear out of them. Some of the ships start flying around and blasting the cities near the ocean, while some high-ranked sirens suddenly appeared above the cities and start attacking the people. In Mustafa, a few sirens, testers, and purifiers start shooting all around. Izuku happened to be walking through the city and saw the sirens arrive. After a few shots, he saw that a few people are trapped. He hyperventilates a bit before running to those who are trapped, lifting up parts of the rubble to help them. With the sirens, Endeavor, Rukyu, and over a dozen other heroes are engaging the invading aliens. But they are having no luck getting through the enemy's shields and kept getting blasted back. "Who the hell are you?" Endeavor shouts with a beam hole through his stomach. Purifier floats up with her hammerhead shark rig behind her. She starts laughing at all of them before saying, "Name's Purifier, and I'm going to have fun ripping all of you apart." She turns her cannons and drones to the heroes and starts firing at them. Suddenly, All Might appears and punches the side of the woman to send her back. He is breathing heavily, but he still has enough energy to say, "There is no need to fear." Why? Because I am here. He then leaps up and attacks the sirens a few times, with some shards and cubes falling when he breaks some gear. But even he can't defeat all of the sirens gathered. He gets blasted back from a few tester clones who start to mock him as well. "You are here? What good does that do when you can't even compare?" Izuku was running down an alleyway when he found a cube on the ground. He reached out and picked it up. It didn't do anything, but he was still curious. Suddenly, he saw All Might get blasted back and hears the sirens mocking his hero. Izuku then shakes out of his fear and runs to the number one. He then gets under All Might's arm and tries to help him up. "Oh, a courageous young one, huh? Well, it won't matter soon," Tester says while pointing her guns at the two. She charges up and fires at the hero and boy. Izuku then turns and closes his eyes, sure that this would be the end. But the only thought going through his mind was, "I wish I could have saved more people." Suddenly the cube he grabbed lit up, and with a flash the beams were stopped. From the smoke, a few shots were heard ringing out. The shots couldn't be seen, but all of the sudden 6 tester clones were destroyed. "What?" Purifier says before getting struck by a round fired at her. From the smoke in front of All Might and Izuku was a very tall woman with fox ears and 5 black fox tails behind her. Her eyes are a piercing sapphire color, and her black hair is in a long ponytail. For clothing, she is wearing a kimono-like garb with samurai armor on parts of it, which is off on left arm and showing off her impressive bust with a sarashi tied around it, and the waist is also exposed with just the large bow in front covering her private areas, as well as having black stockings that cover her legs, with tall Geta sandals on her feet. In her left hand is a massive sword. She has a smile that just radiates confidence in herself. Behind her body is a setup with 10 large gun barrels set in pairs around her, as well as a variety of other guns scattered across the mechanical setup. That is when she speaks with a confident tone. "Well now, it seems we have some targets to face off with. Battleship Ki reporting, Commander." With that said, she leaps up and engages the sirens with both sword and gun. It takes about 15 minutes, but Ki manages to run off the high-rank siren and defeat all of the clones. But shots are still being fired from the ocean, and the Coast Guard and JSDFM is having little luck against the enemy. Even the heroes like Selkie and Gang Orca are useless, as even when they get on the ships, there is no one to stop, and they can barely make a dent in the metal of the ships. While Ki was fighting, Izuku stayed and helped a few of the heroes and others before falling back a ways. "What you did was reckless, young man. But it was still impressive. You have the heart of a hero." All Might said to Izuku when they all had a moment to catch their breath. Endeavor begrudgingly acknowledged Izuku's efforts as well, as did a few of the other heroes in the area. Rukyu was about to ask why he didn't use his quirk, when Kiai arrived and walked up to Izuku. She then saluted before saying, "The main force of the Sirens is still out there, sir. We need to take the fight to them." Izuku looks around before asking if she was talking to him. With a smile, Kiai nods before saying, "You were able to call to me and summon me to this world, even though I had never been built by this nation long ago." This shocks everyone, wondering what the woman could be talking about. Izuku tries to process this, but he can't. Kiai hums a bit before saying, "Maybe this could help you summon more." She reaches into her sleeve and pulls out a handful of cubes to show the group. She then tells him to remember what he thought of when he summoned her. Izuku looks at the battleship woman like she is crazy, but he grabs two of them and thinks back again. Nothing happens for a bit and Izuku gets discouraged. Kiai then pulls the boy into a hug before saying, "Don't overthink it, Commander. Just feel it." Izuku is shocked by the close proximity, but the woman's voice helps to calm his heart, and he can remember the emotions that he felt when he summoned Kiai. The cubes light up, and before long, two more women appear before the group. While the heroes are shocked at what is happening and Izuku is fumbling with his words and thoughts, the two new arrivals speak up. The youngest looking of the two was a girl with white hair and bright red eyes, and wearing an unusual sailor outfit. On top of her head are mechanical pieces that look like horns, and at her side are a set of cannons and two triple torpedo launchers. In her right hand, though, is a large sword. Improved Fubuki-class destroyer, Ayanami. I'm also known as the Demon. The older of the two new summons has a crisp white uniform on, with dog-like ears on top of her head. The uniform, while not showing skin, seems to accentuate the woman's impressive bust. On her legs are black garter belt stockings with white heels on her feet. At her sides are what appear to be ship sections with 6 double-barreled cannons on them. Behind her back is a katana. The woman then speaks up saying, "Ara, what a cute commander. Please allow your big sister Atego to take good care of you from now on." She then walks up and gives Izuku a hug. Izuku is still not sure how to process all of this, but Kiai helps him. With a smack of her sword to the top of Atego's head, she then says, "We have more pressing matters to deal with. 2 cubes left, Commander. Make them count." Izuku shakes out of the pleasant scent and comfort of Atego. "Right. Hang on," Izuku says. He grabs the 2 cubes and reaches out again. This time only one ship appears. It is another fox woman. But instead of black hair, she has silver hair and is wearing a blue kimono. Said kimono is draped below her shoulders, with her cleavage on clear display. On her legs she is wearing white stockings with her geta. Floating at her right side are trio of katanas, and on her left appears to be a runway of sort. I am called Shinano, an aircraft carrier of the Sakura Empire. Please allow the 3rd ship of the Yamato class to guide you forward upon the right path. Izuku is just stunned by what is in front of him and can't build a sentence. Kiai notices this and puts a hand on his shoulder. "Commander, there are enemies out on the waters. What would you have us do? Fight to defeat the enemy? Destroy all in our path?" Izuku finally snaps out of it and thinks on what she said, before saying, "No, you are going to fight to save everyone from these strange invaders. The heroes can handle a vac on land. We need to fight back against the threat at sea, I think." Kiai nods before agreeing with the boy who summoned her. She gives the orders to the 3 gathered before they head out for the water. While shocking at first, the heroes went along with Izuku's plan and orders. "You did well, young man. We'll handle things here. Get yourself to a shelter." Endeavor compliments, then orders the young man. Izuku, though, shakes his head before saying, "No, I have to see them through. I don't know why, but I feel I have to." With that, he runs off toward the water to see what will happen. Out at sea, Selkie and a few other maritime heroes have been badly injured or killed. Selkie is missing an arm, and Gang Orca has a hole in his stomach. Right as a few of the high-rank clones are about to finish them off, Atego and Ayanami come out blasting and slicing through the enemy. They then land on the water and skate around firing blast after blast at the Siren ships in port. Ki and Shinano are a bit behind them, but they also contribute to the battle and cut down their own number of Siren clones and ships. Around the world, a few others awaken ships from the past. Like a pair of men at Pearl Harbor. Both had family who had been stationed there long ago, and both had managed to awaken American ships. Marcus Miller, an African-American soldier at the harbor, awakened Arizona, and the destroyer siblings of Downs and Casson. While a National Parks worker, David Rasmussen, helped Miller to evacuate others. He awakened the Spirit of Enterprise herself alongside North Carolina and Minneapolis. A young girl in Kale called out and Bismarck answered, and helped to bring forth Prince Eugen and Z-23. In York and London, 2 people called out and summoned Hood with Javelin and Ark Royal supported by Fortune. At Norfolk, a young captain of a cruiser called out while trying to direct her crew, and she summoned Long Island, Colorado, and Thatcher. Even some from Italy, Russia, France, and China were summoned. Near Cure, a young woman managed to reach the spirit of Tehu, and with the Phoenix Carrier's help, she summoned Eyes and Hyuga. And after a stellar and brutal battle, they were able to summon Yukukaze and Megami to give them some smaller ship firepower. With the first battle of this new war winding down, and Izuku standing at the ocean as the girls he asked to protect everyone fought on, he couldn't believe what had all happened. With Ki and Shinano using their strength and rigs to help lift up a few of the injured heroes, Ayanami could start collecting the cubes that had fallen all around the sea from the battle. Atego, though, went back to Izuku for 2 reasons. "Aren't you going to help them?" Izuku asked when Atego returned to his side. She gave a gentle smile before saying, "I think it would be best to have at least some protection for our young commander. And I'm quite capable of that myself. But also, I think we could use a few more to aid us." At saying that, she pulled out 2 more cubes and offered them to Izuku. He was a bit surprised, but he did see her point. Izuku took the cubes in hand and tried to call out to whatever ship may be on the other side. It took a few minutes, but he eventually called 2 more ships into their world. The first was a mint green-haired cat girl with a blunt sword that seemed to have a variety of tools attached. And with a meow, she introduced herself. "Naya, Commander. It's good to see you. Repair ship Akashi reporting for duty." Izuku was surprised, especially with how short the girl was. The second was a woman who could rival Atego with the warm demeanor and friendly appeal. She was slightly shorter than Atego, with horns on the top of her head and her black hair in pigtails. Her clothing appeared to be similar to a schoolgirl uniform, with her breasts being accentuated by the sweater she was wearing. Around her body was a rig similar to Atego's, but much smaller. And with a playful voice, she said to Izuku, "Ihei, I'm Nagara. Commander, have you been anticipating my arrival?" While looking at him like he was a cute little brother. Izuku blushed again, but he coughed before regaining a bit of his composure. "Can you 2 go out and help the others with recovering people out there?" The 2 looked out and saluted before heading out. Akashi would go to the various ships, including the Oki Mariner, and repair the damage that the Sirens had caused, while Nagara helped to recover those who were injured or dead. She could not carry as much compared to Ki and Shinano, but she was faster and made good time on her trips. With the first battles ended and the cleanup and recovery being finished, the world could begin to look around and take stock of what had happened. While most were shocked at heroes like All Might and Stars and Stripes getting knocked around by the invaders, more were looking toward the strange entities that had been summoned and managed to actually defeat the Sirens. When it was discovered who had summoned the heroic ships, the militaries around the world began to try and recruit these warriors and the ones that commanded them. And while Izuku was still quite young, the defense of him by both his ships, and from the heroes he had helped, kept the JSDF leaders from pushing him around. If these monsters are going to keep coming, then I'm going to help fight. Even if it is from the rear guard and trying to make a strategy, I'll help them protect everyone, Izuku said with a shaky but determined look in his eyes. With that, each of the summoners were given bases to command and some actual influence to help fight against the newest threat, and thus the Siren War subverted the age of heroes in the world. I'll get into some other details later with what has changed as well as introducing the other commanders. But for now the focus is on Izuku and what his role in the war will be, and how he'll be a different kind of hero from what he is in the manga. Also, I do have a reason for choosing the ships I did. For one, a few of the ones I had Izuku start with don't get a lot of love on the fanfic side. Heck, Shinano and Ki aren't even on the lists of searchable characters. Plus, this is fanfiction, so I'm allowed a bit of liberties based on the little we have of some of the personalities. Please review. So now we'll get into some of the fallout since the attack by the Sirens, and that what Izuku will be dealing with for the future. I'll also get into a bit of the details with some of the other commanders, and how they'll relate to each other. So on with the show. No path. After the cleanup of the battle with the Sirens, people around the world were questioning what could happen next. For Izuku, that was more prominent due to the newest additions in his life. After the battles were done, all 6 of the girls he summoned came back to his home. Izuku, who are these ladies? Midoriya asked when her son returned home. Izuku looked back and sighed before saying, I'm not 100% sure myself, Mom. I got caught up in, well, I guess we can say that I was in the middle of that invasion mess, and these girls heard me when I called for help. I think. Inko just looks at her son like he might need to see a therapist. Ki has a bit of a laugh before speaking for herself and the others. Hello, Midoriya-san. I'm the first of the Ki class of ships. Ki. Your son was trying to help and save people during the Siren invasion. He found a mental cube that one of the enemies had dropped, and he used it to summon me first. Then the rest. After hearing that info dump, Inko was just shell-shocked and was trying to comprehend what she had just heard. After giving her a few moments, and all of them sitting down in the living room, a few more questions could be answered. For both Midoriyas. As they were sitting down, Izuku noticed something important. Hey, where did your guns go? We just dismissed our rigging commander. We don't need it in such close quarters, so I guess you could say retracted it into ourselves. Atego says while crossing her legs. The 2 humans shake their heads before deciding to move on with the conversation. Inko then asks, so, what are you? Your names seem like ship or location names. Does that have something to do with it? Correct, Naya. All of us were ships from back in World War II, Naya. We are what you could call the souls of the ship's given form. The cubes are what connects both us and the Sirens to the world in a sense, Naya. Akashi explains. When she was given a curious look, she tells that since she was a repair ship, that meant she was deeper in tune with the cubes that brought them to life and their nature as ships. Ki takes over again and explains that they know of the enemy and their nature due to being summoned in other worlds as well. Or rather other dimensions. This isn't the first world the Sirens have attacked. And each time, we spirits of the ships of old have answered the call to fight back. But we need to call by someone who is compassionate enough to reach out and try to help others, as well as something of a connections to our past. Shinano continues for her sister. This confuses the Midoriyas again, but the Silver Fox woman explains that their ancestor had helped to make the plans for all of the Yamato class, including her retrofit into a carrier. As such, Izuku was able to connect to us in a way few others could anymore. Nagara says while looking around the apartment. Inko still isn't sure how to process all of this, but she moves past it. So I guess I'll need to make more for dinner tonight. That means I have to pick up more ingredients. I'll go with you, ma'am, Ki offers. Inko is a bit surprised, but then Atego and Nagara offer to help with some of the cleaning. as well as making sure that Izuku does a few of the chores as well. While still confused by the whole matter, the Midoriya matriarch agrees. With that, she and Kiai head out, while the rest work to clean the apartment and set up for dinner. While on the walk to the market, Inko keeps looking over at Kiai with confusion, as well as a touch of envy. Though she isn't the only one given the statuesque appearance of the woman next to her. This does work to their advantage in a few shops though. Since she's this big, she'll need a little extra. Have a few extra pork cutlets. If you've got more like her at your house, you'll need more food. These are a little lower quality, but you can have these eggs. These veggies are a bit odd looking, but they still taste good. Is what a few of the shopkeepers say when they notice Ink was buying extra food. And since they know about her raising Izuku, and how she has been a loyal customer for quite a while, they were willing to help in a few ways. Even more so when they noticed that Kiai was one of the women who helped save the city. A few people started to swarm them after noticing, some asking if she was a pro-hero. But Kiai just smiled and patiently slipped through with Inko to get away from the mob. Sorry about that. I guess it shouldn't be too surprising given you saved everyone from those invaders. But I wonder how long before they come to our house to collect all of you, Inko said with a worried look. Turns out not very long. When they arrived back at the apartment complex, a group of black cars with police and military escort were waiting outside. Inko stepped forward with Kiai, who had summoned her rigging just in case, to ask the men what they were doing there. One of the men stepped forward. He had the markings for an admiral on his coat, and he saluted both women. Hello, Midoriya-san. I'm Vice Admiral Sujita of the Maritime Self-Defense Force. We were hoping to speak with your son. May I come inside? Inko just sighs before agreeing, but asking that only he and one of his men come in. We already have other guests right now. The Admiral chuckles a bit and agrees to her terms. When they all have come into the apartment, it is much cleaner than before. With Izuku and Ayanami currently cleaning the bathroom, while Atego and Nagara had just finished cleaning and dusting the living room. Akashi, though, was apparently tinkering with the stove, and she happily reported to Inko that she not only fixed a few leaks in the washing machine and damaged coils on the refrigerator, but she had improved the stove so it would cook faster and more efficiently. Inko was surprised, but with how cute Akashi was being, she just felt the need to pat the girl on the head and praise her. And then she noticed that Akashi started purring. Is this normal? More or less. Akashi-chan is a bit more like a cat than others with her kind of ears. Atego says before stirring some hot water for tea. Nagara then says to Inko, we can help with making dinner. I'm guessing they need to talk with the commander. Inko nods before calling in Izuku. When he arrives, he is surprised to see an admiral in their home. The older man salutes before asking if they could discuss a few matters. Izuku agrees while Kiai stands beside him, eyeing up the older man. Now then, young man, I understand that you were the one who managed to bring out the 6 women here, correct? Yeah, I don't really know how I did it, but when I was trying to help All Might, I reached out in some way and called them to this world. Izuku says with a sheepish look on his face. The military man nods before asking if he knew how anyone else could do the same. I don't know. From what Kiai and the others said, I was able to call to her first because an ancestor or something had worked on her plans and designs. And somehow this allowed the others to also be brought into existence. Sujita nods again before humming to himself. He takes a sip of tea before explaining why he is there. We would like these girls to come with us to the naval base nearby. We will compensate you, but we feel it would be better if they were handled by military personnel. Sujita says. This makes Izuku a bit nervous, as not only did he feel a connection to these girls, but he wondered if they would just treat him like a burden. Kiai's face turns a bit severe before looking down at the admiral. We will not leave our commander. He was the one who called us here. So if you want us, Commander Izuku comes as well. But surely it would be better if you had a true commander or admiral leading you. Someone who actually knows strategy and tactics, Sujita says with a slightly panicked tone and a worried look on his face. Atego, though, comes from the kitchen with a suggestion. Perhaps the commander could show you how skilled he is even though he is just a child. Akashi then brings out a shogi board and pieces. Atego puts forth the idea that Izuku could show what he could do that way. Sujita raises his eyebrows, but goes along with it, thinking he'll beat the boy in a few moves. Izuku, meanwhile, is panicking about what she suggested, but a quick side hug from the buxom dog woman helps to relax and calm his mind. So, with a deep breath, the match begins. They decide to go with the best of 5 matches. But the Admiral is defeated in 3 straight matches against Izuku. Surprising. Do you have an intelligence-boosting quirk? Or perhaps something like foresight? Sujita says after congratulating Izuku. The boy's eyes widen, and he looks down before he says, "No, I don't have a quirk." This surprises Sujita again, and after a few seconds he starts laughing a bit. That is infinitely more impressive, young man. Perhaps with a bit more training, you could earn the rank of commander or even admiral, especially if you are going to command these girls against the threat out at sea. Sujita then goes into more of what has been happening in the oceans of the world. We thought the enemy had left after the battles in the bay and down in Kure. But intel from a few other navies of our allies says otherwise. They seem to be setting up bases or something similar out in the ocean. Pearl Harbor is apparently a major hot spot, but thanks to these girl fleets, they've been able to protect it and most of the people. Kiai steps forward and says to Sujita, "This is similar to a few other world versions of ourselves. We are all somewhat connected to our other versions, but not all of us can tell that. The Sirens will keep coming at us, and they will do all they can to push humanity to the brink." The older man nods before asking for their help. Not just the ship spirits, but Izuku as well, explaining that they need his ability to summon more ships if they were to hope to have a chance against this new foe. Izuku is shocked and a little terrified by all of this explanation. "I'm sorry, I need some time to think about this," the boy says with a bit more pitch to his voice that he would have liked. The Admiral nods before explaining that he will be in town for a few days. After Sujita leaves, Izuku removes himself to his room. When Atego wants to keep him company, Kiai stops her. He needs to think about this for a bit. Let's give him some time. Let's help Midoriya-san with dinner. After Izuku went back to his room, he laid down on his bed and thought about the strange day that had happened. For an hour, he thought about it more and more, and he kept going back to one common thought. This is some of what I was thinking about. A different way to be a hero. But can I really do it? Izuku keeps thinking this over and over. Then he comes to a different thought. If you could do what I can, and could summon and direct other heroes where they were needed, would you take this chance? Izuku thought while looking at an All Might poster on his wall. He knew the number 1 would prefer to fight this enemy head-on. But he knew that All Might was also for believing in others who were more suited to saving certain people. And maybe this was Izuku's chance to save as many lives as possible. And at only 10 years old at that. Izuku then sat up and went back to talk with the girls he summoned as well as his mother. When he got to the dining room, there was a feast of katsudon waiting for him. "Feeling better, Des?" Ayanami asked while looking to Izuku from the table. Izuku gets a small smile before saying, "Yeah, I feel better, and I know what I have to do." Kiai nods to her commander while Atego and Nagara have warm smiles directed at the boy. Akashi cheers a bit and Shinano just has a small smile on her face. Izuku then sits down before saying he will help the Admiral. "And anyone else we can. I may not be able to fight on the front lines, but I can still help direct all of you. To save others, and to keep all of you safe as best I can," Izuku says with a nervous but determined look. Inko then starts to cry for her son and the courage he is showing. Atego and Nagara then stand up and hug him at the same time. While a bit embarrassing, given he gets a face full of both of their boobs, he also feels relaxed in the two women's warm embrace. Sujita had left his card, and they planned to call the man tomorrow. Once dinner was done, Inko was setting out a few futons for the girls. Kiai was sitting in the chair with her sword in hand, saying, "Just in case something happens, it would be better to be ready." Shinano was taking up the whole couch. Nagara and Atego offered to sleep with Izuku, but Inko put the two in a guest room, and then offered to let Ayanami sleep with her, while oddly Akashi had already curled up like a cat in Izuku's room. "I guess that is fine," Inko says while petting the cat girl on her head and making her purr. Izuku chuckles a bit before settling in for the night. And tomorrow he would begin his new life as a commander for Azur Lane. "I'll keep it simple with this. They won't be getting into fights right away. Please review." For those complaining about giving Izuku Shinano, I have this to say. Why not? I mean, it's not like I plan to make it easy for them to get more ships. I'm only going to make it easy for the first 6 in each group. So I was wrong about Kiai. I was just going off of what I have seen in other media before, where Kiai is listed as a Yamato or a Super Yamato with Ori. It seemed more badass to say that Izuku has 2 Yamatos under his command. Thanks to Foxfire for sending some other information. But enough of that, on with the show. No puff. The day after Sujita visited, Inko called the number on the card he had left. While she was doing that, Izuku was both looking forward to this call and dreading it. "Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe." "Commander, stop. I know you are nervous, but you have to stay resolute in your decisions. And remember, we're all with you," Kiai says as the boy starts to panic about what his role could be. While her words don't fully calm down Izuku, they are enough to get him to stop rambling. When the Admiral picks up the phone, he comments that he is surprised they called back so soon. "I thought you might agonize over this for days or something." Izuku chuckles a bit before saying he had somewhat been thinking on things like this for a while. "Since I didn't have a quirk, I was trying to think of ways to be a hero without one. I looked to heroes a bit like Nezu and other super intelligent strategist heroes." Sujita hums before agreeing with Izuku's thought. "We can help you improve the strategic skill you've shown already. And as you say, you won't be on the front lines, but you will still be saving lives. And trust me, we need it now," Sujita says before telling the boy, as well as his mother and fleet, that he will be sending cars for all of them later, noting that it would be better if he was on base to command and direct his girls. Izuku thanks the man and asks if he will be in command of him, considering his position is only commander, not admiral. The older admits he will just be charge of passing down orders and intelligence to the fleet. "It will be up to you to decide where to go and how they will fight. I thank you again, young Midoriya, and I know your country will thank you as well." With that, the Admiral hangs up. With that done, the Midoriyas, with the aid of the ship girls, pack up the apartment and get ready to head for the base. It only takes them about 2 hours, and they are ready, and just in time as the cars arrived right as they were finishing packing. The military officers then salute before helping the group load up the packed-up apartment in a van brought as well. To make sure nothing would happen, a shipgirl stayed with both of the Midoriyas present, Kiai staying close to her commander, and Atego with Inko. "Gotta admit, this wasn't what I was expecting when Vice Admiral Sujita ordered us to collect the new fleet. Be that what you girls or women look like, and that a kid would be a part of the deal," a female officer driving Izuku and Kiai said as they were heading for the base. Izuku ducks his head a bit while blushing, and the military woman chuckles a bit before saying he would be fine. Mongol Base is a secure location, and it will give you plenty of time to grow into your role, whatever that is supposed to be. Izuku groans a bit before looking out at the sea. Kiai puts a hand on his shoulder and gives him a warm smile. It takes about an hour before they reach the base. Once there, Izuku just steps out and looks over the whole location. He sees a few soldiers jogging around, as well as others loading up materials and equipment into the hangars on base. And he starts to think, will any of them be willing to accept that I'll have a leading role here? For the shipgirls, they are each enjoying the sights, sounds, and smells of the base, as well as the sea again. Atego leans back after helping Inko out of the car and says, "It feels comforting to be on a military base again. Like coming home." Ayanami nods while Akashi seems to be eyeing up some of the equipment that the soldiers are moving. Ki and Shinano, though, both note the tone of the base. Something big must have happened. There's this tense air about the everyone. Shinano says while the soldiers start to move the Midoriya family's effects to a residence on base. Sujita then arrives and notes she is correct. There's been a startling development out at sea. "Midoriya-san, I need to speak to Izuku about matters. Do you mind?" Inko shakes her head and goes to help the soldiers move their things to the new house along with Megara. Izuku, meanwhile, is concerned about what could be so alarming. Kie, Shinano, and Atego come with Izuku and the Admiral to the office building on base. Once there, the Admiral asks most of the staff to leave, before bringing up some files on his computer. After the attacks around the world, a lot of navies have been damaged. China and the Philippines were some of the worst. But that isn't the worst part. A lot of trade and shipping vessels have been lost or sunk. Some disappearances are almost Bermuda Triangle-like. The Admiral then shows the screens noting where even modernist Navy ships had been lost or sunk after the battles around the world. Before saying that overnight, it seemed as if the nations had been isolated from the oceans. There's no place for humanity, it seems. Even heroes have had little luck. A few have been lost already. Sujita says with a downcast look. Izuku gulps before asking if there was anything they could do to save those sailors. "They can't be saved, Commander. But they can be avenged, and we can save the rest," Kie says with a stern, determined face. Shinano and Atego mirror this, while Izuku looks down sadly. Sujita nods before saying they need to prepare for a renewed attack. He then notes that the Sirens will most likely be coming for the bases to engage and defeat the possible resistance that had been brought to the world. No, they won't be going there. Or rather coming here. They'll be aiming for the cities again, Izuku says after thinking about matters for a few minutes. Sujita is surprised and asks the boy what he means. Izuku scratches his head before saying, "The way one of them talked, and the other with her was taunting me about being brave. I think they'll be aiming to hurt as many as possible to stretch us thin. And they'll be aiming for Mustafa again." Kie agrees with Izuku before noting something in her faint memories. In other dimensions, it almost seems like they are testing humanity. And given this world's obsession with quirks and this version of heroes, they'll want to test what humans think they can do with those quirks. Sujita leans back before thinking the matter over. He agrees that they could be doing that, but asks what they should do. Izuku then says they need to start partial evacuations of the seaside areas, and to have the heroes help with that. "I've admired them my whole life. But they can't really fight against this threat. But they can keep everyone else safe." Sujita nods, and then asks Izuku to come to a different room. On a side door to Sujita's office, there is a massive holograph projecting table with a few other radios and comm stations around. He turns on the table, and it shows a map of Japan. As he does, another screen pops up, and it shows a different base. After about a minute, the screen shows a different admiral and a young woman. This admiral is Vice Admiral Hashizume, and the young woman with him is Hirano Himori. "Sujita, I take it this is the young man who summoned the fleet near you?" Hashizume asks, while looking over the four in the room. Sujita acknowledges that and asks about Himori. She is an average-looking young woman, though she does have red skin and eyes, with dark sclera and a pair of nubs on her head, giving her the appearance of an oni. After introducing herself, Himori says, "I was just a university student out here, but when the attacks happened, I grabbed a cube that had fallen and somehow could hear and call out to Well, Shikiken, where have you gone? Don't leave me behind. As soon as that is heard, a new woman in a red short, skirted kimono with her large breasts on display is seen. She then glomps onto Himori before pushing the woman into her breasts further. Izuku blushes a bit at this, and Atego quickly covers her commander's eyes. But he also gets a good feel of her own breasts on top of his head. Himori pulls out before saying, "Tehu, stop. At least for a minute. We're having a discussion here." Tehu then looks at the screen and sees the other admiral and Izuku on the screen. She then coughs before apologizing. "Excuse me, Admiral. Young Commander. I was just looking for my commander for a while and was happy to find her," Tehu says politely, though she has yet to let go of Himori. Sujita coughs before saying they needed to move on. "Agreed. Photo base is secure, and we've been preparing for the likely attack on this location," Hashizumi says, but Sujita mentions what Izuku said. He then goes on to say that Izuku is one of the few who actually had contact with the Sirens. While the heroes did as well, most of them are still in the hospital or are helping with recovery. Given what young Midoriya mentioned about our enemy, I'd be willing to agree with his assessment. The other admiral hums a bit to come up with a counter. Himori then asks Tehu if she remembered similar instances and attacks by the Sirens in her memories. "Indeed, I do, Himori-sama. The Sirens would often attack more unusual targets. It often seemed as though they were testing the resolve of the humans there, as well as we ship girls." Upon hearing that, Hashizumi stops the counter he was about to put forward. He then says, "Well, if that is the case, then we should go ahead with the evacuations. But we still should keep some forces ready at the bases." "I do agree, sir. But we still need to be ready for when they hit some of the cities. And I'm willing to bet that they would be focused on where heroes are often seen fighting," Izuku says before pointing to a few different locations. Namely, Mustafa, Tokyo, Fukuoka, and Adaru. These would probably be the main locations that they would attack. "I agree with. What is your name, kiddo?" Himori says while looking over Izuku. Izuku then introduces himself and explains that they need to try to lure in as many of the Sirens as they can. When questioned about why, Himori surmises it is to try and get more cubes to summon ships. Only a few of them appeared after all of the fighting, and only a handful of shards came from the autonomous ships that the girls fought, meaning that we have a better chance of getting more resources from the higher-ranked ones. Right? Izuku is surprised, but glad his fellow summoner can see what he has in mind. The older soldiers nod a bit, but wonder if these youths truly understand the weight they now carry. They then agree and set about plans to evacuate the cities Izuku mentioned. "I think you need to talk with your fleets before setting out," Sujita says before hanging up. Izuku and the 3 ships who accompanied him discuss a few other details with Admiral Sujita before heading back for the evening. When they arrive at the house, Inko and Nagara had already set up and cleaned the house Izuku would be staying in. "Nagara, the Admiral mentioned that a barracks had been set up specially for us. Most of us will be living there. But I do think that one person should stay with Midoriya-san and keep the house safe," Atego mentioned while helping set the table for dinner. Nagara volunteers first, saying she wanted to take care of Izuku a bit, and would be a great help around the house for Inko. Kiai, though, shakes her head and says, "I'll stay with the commander for a while. It would be better to have some extra muscle while we are all still settling in." Atego and Nagara want to argue, but they also know they can't compete with her battleship muscle, let alone the fact she was the first ship Izuku summoned. The boy, meanwhile, is just looking all involved with confusion. After dinner, Izuku goes into the room his mom had set his things in and starts to unpack more. While he is setting up his All Might collection, he questions himself more and more. What if I'm wrong? What if they do come here and we aren't ready for them? What if I fail in leading these girls and it gets them all killed? Izuku thinks to himself after pulling out a few action figures. After a few minutes, a knock is heard at his door. "Commander, it's Atego. Do you want some help?" While Izuku is suspicious given how amorous the woman had been at times, he could hear in her voice that she was just concerned. He gives her the okay, and she opens the door to see some of the All Might memorabilia Izuku had. She titters a bit before saying, "It's a bit unusual to see all of these stars and stripes here in Japan. But I guess that man was inspired by the determination of those people who defeated us long ago." Atego then helps Izuku with more unpacking before asking him if he was troubled. Izuku looked up before sitting down and sighing. "I'm just afraid. I'm so used to being called useless or helpless just because I don't have a quirk. But now, I've got so many lives riding on the decisions I make. The 6 of you for starters. Then there's all the people in the cities. Not just in Japan, but even in other parts of the world. If I fail, how many will die?" Atego just listened to her commander vent for a bit before sitting next to him on his bed. She then patted his head before saying, "You are right to be scared. This is a daunting task that has been set before you. But the fact that you are still willing to make decisions and try to save others shows you have the heart for this fight. For now, you need to trust your instincts and trust in us. We all trust you and believe you can lead us through this." She then gently pulls Izuku into a hug while patting his head. The tone of her voice, as well as the patient and gentle actions she took, are enough for Izuku to melt into her embrace. When Izuku and Atego had finished with decorating his room, the latter excused herself before saying, "If you ever need someone to cry or talk to, please leave it to your big sister. Or this big sister as well." Nagara then says from down the hallway. Izuku blushes a bit before asking, "Is this what it is really like to have siblings?" The 5 shipgirls chuckle a bit before admitting it was somewhat similar. With that, 4 of the 5 go to the barrack that Sujita had designated for them. But not before Izuku asked them to go find Akashi. With all of that done, Kiai then sits down in the living room with some tea. "You might want to get some sleep early, Commander. Tomorrow, or possibly even during the night, you may be called on to direct us in battle," Kiai says while relaxing in the chair. Inko agrees before mentioning that she was tired from the packing and unpacking, so she would be turning in early too. Izuku smiled a bit before heading to his room to first look over some hero news, and then get some sleep. Because tomorrow would be the first true day for him as a commander of naval ships. Against the threat of the Sirens. Well, that setup is done, and now I can work on the eventual battles ahead. I'm just glad I got this done on my birthday before any celebrating. Please review. This one might be a bit of rough writing for me, but I think I've got an idea on where to go with the fight and some interactions down the line. Though I have to consider more with possible enemies in the future. So on with the show. Izuku Puff. It's hard to say if this is going to work, but I have to put my best guess and foot forward if I want to prove that I'm a capable commander. Backdraft, sir? Have the evacuations been going smoothly? I asked the rescue-focused hero from the comm station at Monkle Base. It is going well so far, young man. After what happened 2 days ago, a few people had already started to move inland. The only ones left were those who couldn't or wouldn't move. The surprising thing, though, has been from those we thought of as villains. Some of them have actually been helping people evacuate, like twice. I nod at this before saying, an alien invasion tends to make people reevaluate a lot of things. Though there will still probably be a few who want to take advantage of the situation. Be prepared for looters and the like. Backdraft gives me a roger before focusing back on the city and the evacuees. I look over the map before going over the plan. My lead assumption was that the Sirens might focus on the cities where heroes are the most focused. If they are trying to test humanity, then going after the new version of humans involved would be the best test. Given the top 10 to 5, it was best to assume they would head for those regions first. Especially with All Might having moved to Mustafa. I say to myself before scratching my chin. One of the other members of the JSDMF steps up and gives a report from the S. It appears San Francisco and Los Angeles have both been destroyed, and the cities of Portland and Seattle have been heavily damaged. There were no mainland awakenings on the West Coast, so the cities were basically undefended. The only hero still alive is Star and Stripes. She managed to defeat a few of the Sirens, but most of the heroes and people are dead. I gulp at hearing that and start to panic a bit more. Commander. I hear over the comms. It's Ki speaking to me. You can't change what has happened. And you can't about every matter in the world. You have to focus on one thing at a time. I look over the map, before taking a deep breath to calm my nerves. I then sigh before agreeing with and thanking Ki. Hopefully some good can come out of that. Maybe some of the survivors can awaken the power of the ships. I focus back on the task and point out the main likely target. They'll probably start at the cities of Shimoda and Amizaki and destroy as much as they can along the way. But we need to pull them more towards Shizuoka itself. If we can at least somewhat box them in, we can concentrate the fire on them and slow the attacks. I agree, Izuku. I have Tehu, Yukikaze and Megami near the city of Fukuoka. And if we can pull them into the bay, the Ice Sisters can hammer them with their guns, as well as what is left of the SDF ships. Himori says before bringing up some other images. Izuku looks them over and can see the dark clouds that seem to be gathering. But the weather maps show nothing. Izuku gulps again before trying to make a speech. I'm not going to say this is going to be easy. Nor will I say we can win this with no casualties. But right now, we have to slow the Siren advance as much as possible and try to give more hope to everyone, not just the people of Japan. So, to my ships, and even your ships, Himori-san, I've got a special order. Come back alive. Give everything you've got, but you have to make it back to us, because then we can bring hope to everyone. I say while trembling while I stand. Himori chuckles before agreeing with me. It may not be as possible for the sailors on the normal ships, but I agree with him. We need to all make it back from this, because it will show what is possible for the battles ahead, and what we can all do to save our home. Once both speeches have finished, there is silence. But then, a few more screens pop up, and the captains on board the normal vessels are saluting us. Even the few that were left from the S's 7th Fleet are standing and saluting the two of us. So Himori and I return the gesture and thank all of them for believing in our hunch and trusting in our girls. As I sit back down, I get a quiet call from Ki. Well done, Commander. You might have just inspired more people than most back in the day. And you're so young at that, she says with a light teasing tone. In the background I can hear both Atego and Nagara making comments about how I'm growing up so fast, and that they're proud. I chuckle at that before announcing to stand by for battle. It shouldn't be much longer. No puff. You think that kid is right, Captain? A sailor on board one of the US cruisers asks while monitoring the radar. The bare-headed man sits back in his chair while sighing. Normally, I wouldn't be one for trusting a former civilian on matters such as this. But given the strange entity we are facing, I'm more willing to believe. Especially after the intel that noted him directly confronting the Sirens, the captain says before asking for a status report. A few of the captains and commanders on the other ships around the Surga Bay and at Hataka Bay. For the shipgirls, though, they were more focused on what they could feel. Tehu-san, do you feel that? Megami asks while tightening her grip on her guns. Tehu's red eyes narrow as she looks out over the Sea of Japan. Indeed, I do. It seems that other commander has a good head on his shoulders. But I do wish our Himori-sama had been one to say the same. Tehu says, before the look on her face morphs into one that displays her less than moral intentions with her commander. Yukikaze, though, has barely noticed and shouts. Why are you so worried, Megami-san Nanada? Don't forget you have Yukikaze-sama on your side. We'll send them packing with my divine grace, Nanada. This little rant, as well as the actions of the first member of the photo fleet, make Megami's sweat drop. Eyes and Hyuga, though, have heard the whole thing and laugh a bit. Don't worry too much, Megami. Just bring them in, and we can try to finish the fight. And maybe get some more help along the way. Eyes says with a twirl of her naginata. With the Mongol fleet, Kiai is standing by in the bay with the other ships. Alongside Akashi and Atego. Ayanami, Nagara, and Shinano, though, are outside the bay and can feel the tension in the air. I do hope the commander's plan works, Nagara says with a nervous look on her face. Ayanami, though, is focused and ready. So, she says to her fleet mate, don't worry. You have the strength of the demon here, as well as the power of the third Yamato. We'll be fine, and we can trust in Izuku. Shinano smiles at Ayanami before agreeing with her. While this doesn't placate all of Nagara's fears, it is enough to help her focus on the task at hand. Suddenly, a new ping comes up on the radars of a few of the ship girls. I'm picking up a cargo ship of some kind out there, or a fishing vessel, Nagara reports. Shinano then launches a few planes to investigate and confirm the report. When the planes get close, a new set of lights show up above the ship. Then a variety of new portals appear behind it. Sirens, Shinano reports as she orders her planes to engage. Ayanami draws her sword, while Nagara gives her cheeks a quick wake-up slap to begin. A few other ships come behind them to be ready to engage as needed. The two smaller ship girls focus on their ALF for the time being and wait for a moment to engage up close. Shinano flies above and watches over the battlefield. We have to get away, the captain of the illegal fishing vessel shouts as the siren ships appear behind them. He orders his crew to try and push the engines as much as they can. A few of the beam gun ports point towards them and start taking shots. Most miss, but one man on deck is struck and vaporized by the impact. Just as they are sure they will die, a few of the ships are struck by the bombs from Shinano's planes. A few of the fighters engage the siren fighters above the ocean, and the torpedo bombers set up for their runs. I don't know what is happening, but we need to get out of here, one of the fishing vessel's crew says before running below to help coax some more speed out of the engines. It takes a few minutes, but the fishing boat gets far enough away, and they pass Ayanami and Nagara as they are going to engage the enemy, with the former trying to get as close as she can to the ships for a torpedo strike. Nagara hangs back a bit and focuses more on with the other allied ships. She and the other ships take a few grazing hits, but they manage to hold the line for a time. Shinano, though, is more focused on a different fact. This is too easy. It's almost like, we have to head back toward the bay, Shinano calls out over the comms. Izuku, meanwhile, has been viewing the battle much the same. He chuckles before saying, I was about to say something similar, Shinano. But I will admit, I'm glad you all moved to save those people on the fishing boat. He had already warned Kiai and the others about the threat, and they were standing ready. Above Surga Bay, a set of portals open. It is not just siren ships that appear, but Purifier as well. Hello, where are you silly little heroes? Think those worthless little bits that mutated you can stop me? Purifier shouts as she and a few clones of herself start shooting around the bay and into the city. While Kiai and the rest are about to engage, Izuku tells them to hold off for a minute. I want to see what she does, Izuku says while gripping his arm. He wants to stop them no matter what. But there are a few things that have him curious. When Purifier doesn't hear the screams of humans or heroes announcing themselves, a puzzled look comes across her face. Nothing happens for at least 5 minutes, and her impatience leads her to just cause random destruction. Where are you? Come out and let me hear your screams. I have to cull the weak and cut you all down. Purifier shouts before using her rig to vaporize a building and start shooting all around, her face showing her rage and annoyance. Seeing that is enough for Izuku to get a better idea of what pushes her buttons. Okay, Kiai, engage, Izuku says, before telling the rest of the ships to do the same. Kiai's smile widens as she and the rest of the shipgirl fleet come out of hiding and start engaging the clones and other vessels. She quickly cuts through a pair of clones before using her guns to blast the ships out in the bay. Atego meanwhile focuses on the water and deflecting the attacks of the airborne monsters. She manages to sink a few ships before engaging a couple of the Purifier clones. Akashi meanwhile had been focused on fire, as that was what her guns were. But then she got a report from the captain of the US Birmingham and JSDF Naka. "That gear you built is ready, Minty Kitty. This should leave a nice mark." The two captains happily report before using a beam gun that Akashi had built using the modern tech and her own otherworld experience with Siren tech. The resulting shots destroyed a battleship Siren as well as vaporizing a few Purifier clones. "That's what I'm talking about, Naya. Give those Sirens a taste of their own medicine, Naya," Akashi shouts before focusing on the aircraft again. Purifier meanwhile is looking around in worry and annoyance. "Did I walk right into a trap?" "Yes, you did." Kiai finishes the Siren's sentence. She then rushes toward her in the sky with her blade drawn. They clash again and again with Kiai smiling all the while. Right after the first ship Izuku summoned engaged the Siren leader, Shinano, and her attached ships returned to the bay. The two smaller ships went to aid Akashi and Atego, while Shinano flew up to aid her sister. She drew two of her katana, wielding one in each hand. She then used her foxtails to grab the third sword and engages Purifier. Izuku then orders the two to keep Purifier busy. "She's the strongest enemy right now. We need to keep her off balance long enough for the rest to engage and defeat the other Siren ships." With a subdued Roger from both Yamatos, they battle Purifier in earnest. She growls before bringing her drones close and making beam blades from them. "You bitches think you can take me? You've got another thing coming," Purifier shouts before attacking Kiai. Back on the ocean, Ayanami and Atego get up close and personal with their blades and cut through the few clones close to the ocean, before unleashing their torpedoes alongside some of Shinano's planes. Nagara though stays back and focuses on with Akashi, though she is nursing a few wounds from a dive bomber or two. "Hold still, Naya, I'll fix you up," Akashi says when Nagara gets close. The horned girl nods and thanks the cat girl before focusing on the Siren aircraft. In Hataka Bay, the battle had been much the same with Tester replacing Purifier and engaging both Ai's sisters near the water. "This could fun. Let's see what you can do," Tester says before blasting them with her cannons. The two jump out of the way before shooting back with their own cannons. Tester tries to block with her shields, but the impacts do more damage than she anticipates. "How?" she asks before getting slashed from behind by Aiza's Naginata. She tries to retaliate, but the battleship is gone. Soon the two are attacking her from multiple angles, and she can't react in time. Then out of nowhere, a new face shows up and stabs her in the side. While wincing, Tester looks down and sees the tearful and nervous face of Kashino. Just as the Siren was about to attack again, Aiz and Hyuga blast away at her with their cannons, and Teihu's bombers return and strike the Siren as well. "What did I tell you? With the grace of Yukikaze-sama, we have nothing to fear," Yukikaze shouts before attacking with her torpedoes. Behind her, though, Teihu and Megami are less impressed, and are annoyed as they had taken damage. With cracks and tears in the fan-like deck of Teihu, and Megami having burned hair and a damaged turret. But the two keep fighting and put their frustration into engaging the Sirens. Back at Tsuruga Bay, the battle has continued to go as Izuku hoped and planned. "I thought so. She's been so focused on getting payback and trying to get her sadistic kicks in, that she failed to notice what has happened to the rest of her fleet," Izuku says before telling all of his ships to engage Purifier. During the sword battle with the two Yamatos, Shinano had tossed Kiai her extra sword, and the two were wearing her down more and more. "You think I'm done? I haven't begun to gurk," Purifier starts, but then a shot from both Atego and Ayanami hit her in the stomach. Ki then takes the chance to knock the Siren closer to the water. With Shinano's planes pouring on the attacks and fire as fast as they can. When she has gotten close enough to the water, Ayanami leads with a torpedo volley. Before firing her guns to get close, Atego follows behind and both engage with their blades. The strikes and explosives from the two, as well as the renewed attacks from Shinano and Ki, do enough damage to Purifier's rigging and body, removing one of her arms and legs. "Damn you, how can this be? I'm a high-ranking Siren," she shouts while wincing at the missing limbs. Ki comes forward and says to the Siren, "It's because you're predictable. The commander knew after meeting you that all you were interested in was making people suffer. So he counted on you wanting to engage as many civilians and heroes as possible." Izuku closes his eyes and tells Ki to finish the alien. She then brings her swords up to cut down the invader. "Oh my. It seems they made quite a mess of you. Whatever will I do with you?" A voice calls out above, and a new barrage of beams fire down at the shipgirls. Up above is Observer, who keeps up her attack before taking Purifier in her tentacles, and chooses this time to torment the other Siren with them. "Well done all of you. And you as well, young commander of the Sakura Empire. I thought the two at Pearl Harbor would require all of our attention. But you have my interest now. Good day," Observer says before firing off at the water again. Just as the two are about to leave through the portal, Purifier struggles enough to use one of the cannons and fire it at Nagara. The girl doesn't notice in time and is badly injured in the blast, losing her right arm and leg. "Nagara." The shipgirls call out with Izuku asking for a report. When it is given, the blood drains from his face, and he is about to be sick to his stomach. Thankfully, Akashi is close by and quickly starts to repair the wounded girl. "Ki-san, I think the commander may need you, Naya," Akashi says while working to save Nagara. Ki nods and orders the rest to look for any cubes or shards. "Enough of them that we can try to make a full cube. We may need a new member after this," Ki says before going full speed back to Monkel Base. When she arrives, she rushes to the command room. Sujita is there and commends her and the girls for their victory. "Never mind that for now, sir." "Where is Commander Izuku?" Ki asks with worry etched all over her face. Sujita nods before guiding her towards the bathroom. "He's in there. After he gave the order to start with cleanup, he ran here. I heard him heave a bit, so, well, do what you can," Sujita says before saluting the battleship girl. The door is locked, so Ki has to break it down and check on Izuku. The boy looks disheveled and is leaning over the toilet, with tears streaming down his face. Ki walks over to him gently and rubs his back. While he doesn't throw up again, it still takes a minute before he can breathe easy. Ki then brings him close to her and rubs his hair. His mother follows soon after, and she hugs both of them, comforting her son and thanking his first ship. They do not move for an hour, and luckily the battles of both bays come out as victories. Perhaps thanks to the luck of Yukikaze, no grievous injuries are had on the photo fleet side. Nagara, though, is lucky that Akashi was able to save her. She may need to rest for a few days, Naya, but she'll live. Akashi reports to Sujita. The admiral nods and thanks all the girls for work in protecting Japan. After an hour, Izuku is able to relax and thanks both his mother and Ki for helping him. "I'm supposed to be the commander, but when I saw Nagara, no one blames you, Commander. Especially the fleet. And frankly, you held up well enough given how young you are. This was your first battle, and we won thanks to your planning," Ki says with a smile. Izuku sniffs before going out to meet the rest of his fleet. When he arrives at the docks, the other soldiers on base take note and salute him. He nods and returns a few salutes. When the shipgirls arrive, a rousing cheer is let out. Nagara is being carried by Shinano, but otherwise the rest are none the worse for wear. At the docks, the captains of the normal ships are also greeted with cheers. Akashi then comes forward with a pair of cubes. We could only get 3 cubes, Commander Naya, but it might be enough for you to summon some new forces, Akashi says before handing Izuku the cubes. He nods before checking on Nagara. The little brother wanting to care for his big sister. That's a bit different. But I'm all right, Izuku. We may need more help soon, Nagara says with a wince before patting Izuku on the head. He blushes at the attention, especially when the soldiers tease him a bit at the action. But he does agree to summon more ships later. For now, we've won our first true battle with the Sirens, and we've pushed them back from our home. I think that deserves a bit of celebrating, Izuku says, and the soldiers cheer again, with his shipgirls agreeing. It isn't much, but the base does have a barbecue before lights out. While elsewhere in the world some are thinking of ways to summon more aid for the nations. So I'm going to leave a few options open to the reviewers. I want to add 2 more ships to Izuku's fleet. Nagara I'm going to have as the reserve and commission member, and Akashi will be focused on repair and support. Who of a small ship and main fleet ship would you all like? Sakura Empire only though. I'm sticking to that element. Please review. Okay, I've got the idea for the next ships to add to Izuku's fleet. But I'm going to move outside of Japan. After all, they aren't the only ones dealing with this invasion by the Sirens. But we will have a bit of a meetup for Izuku, Himori, and their new fleet mates. Now then, on with the show. No puff. With the first battle for Japan finished, and the celebrations past, Izuku looked over the 3 cubes his fleet had managed to acquire. He was in the command room and was in a video call with Himori. So it was similar for your group. We only recovered 2 cubes from the battle, Himori said with the cubes in front of her. Izuku nodded with a sigh. I'm hoping with the next set of summons I can get someone to replace Nagara for a time. But I don't know how to summon a specific ship. Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe we just have to trust luck or fate, Himori said with an unsettled look on her face. That is fairly accurate, Commander Hirano. While the cubes have to be used to call to us, you just have to trust the fates and hope for who will answer the call. Izuku hears behind him. Ki had slipped in while Izuku and Himori were discussing the battle. Behind Himori, though, Tehu decided to sneak up on her commander and then quickly hug the woman's head into her cleavage. Izuku decided to focus on his ship and asks, is there really no other suggestion for getting a specific ship? Ki just shrugs. But Tehu has a suggestion. If it helps, young commander, normally the trend in some worlds was to use 1 cube for a smaller ship, and 2 would be used for heavy and specialized ships, such as myself and Ki Dono there. The fact she is saying this while still having her commander's face pressed into her cleavage is a bit distracting for the boy. But he shakes his head to refocus, mentioning that he only used 1 cube to bring out Ki and Atego. So what's up with that? Izuku asks with a puzzled expression. Himori finally pulls herself out of Tehu's breasts with a gasp and says, couldn't breathe. Maybe it was just luck or something else. I only needed 1 to summon Tehu here. Maybe whatever connects us to the realm where the ships come from decided we needed some real muscle. Izuku nods before chuckling, saying, it sounds like they just wanted to watch an interesting story unfold, and they put us at risk to make it. All of the women in the room look at him with a side-eyed glance before moving on. Himori says that they need to bolster their forces as well as try to establish some trade of some kind. You're right. With shipping cut off, most island nations could run into the issue of dwindling supplies. Too bad we can't use the girls' original ship forms, Izuku says while resolving to test out Tehu's suggestion. Oh, we actually can, Commander, Ki mentions nonchalantly. Izuku and Himori then look at the battleship girl with a raised eyebrow. Tehu confirms the same, that they can turn their rigging into the entire ship. Then why didn't you use the full ships in the battle yesterday? Himori asks with a flat look. Both girls just shrug before saying it feels better to fight with their rigging compared to just directing or controlling their ships. Izuku facepalms with a sigh before asking to meet with Himori later to discuss future options. The photo commander agrees and signs off. Izuku leans back before picking up one of the cubes. It's all up to luck or fate, huh? Guess I'll try it. Izuku says before gripping the cube tightly. He focuses more on trying to get a smaller ship. Someone to take over for Nagara. While she's recovering, the boy commander thinks. The cube starts to light up in his hand, and then begins to form into his new ship. What appears before him is a young girl with very pale skin, almost akin to the sirens themselves. Right down to the white hair. Though unlike the enemy of humanity, she has bright blue eyes. And atop her head are black and white fox ears, and behind her is a white fox tail. She is also wearing a sailor uniform-esque garb, with sleeves that seemed more akin to a kimono or priestess garb. At her side for her rigging, she has two pieces of what appear to be a ship's, or rather her ship's hull, with a double-barreled gun on both, and a quad torpedo launcher behind that. But that is not all. On both sides of her hips are two full katana in their saya, while under the guns and torpedoes are another set of blades, though much shorter. It is then that the girl speaks to Izuku. I am Kawakaze, Shiritsuyu classes Kawakaze. I am not interested in getting along, so you can save your greetings, the now named Kawakaze says with a slightly deeper and deadpan voice. Izuku is a little unsettled at how cold this new girl he summoned appeared to be. Ki, though, is a bit annoyed at the new girl's dismissive attitude and tells her off with, I'd watch that tone if I were you. He is your commander now. While Kawakaze's initial reaction to that statement is to scoff, she jumps a bit when Ki slams her Nadachi and its saya onto the ground. Then feels a bit intimidated by the look the battleship girl is giving her. Kawakaze coughs a bit before subtly apologizing to Izuku. Izuku just gives a light admission of her apology, slightly intimidated by Ki as well. I know you are new to this world, Kawakaze, but we need your help. The sirens are here as you most likely guessed, and there aren't that many of you shipgirls here as well. Izuku says to the newest addition. He goes on to tell her that there has already been an injury among his fleet, and he needs someone to step up into the role. Kawakaze just sighs slightly before saying, While I'm slightly annoyed that I was summoned to be a replacement, I know enough to understand you didn't summon me without good reason. I'll fight alongside the rest. Izuku just nods before thanking the girl. He then picks up the remaining 2 cubes to summon another heavy or special ship. Or he would if he knew what the special ships were. Hey, what did she mean by a special ship? Izuku asked Ki. Kawakaze, though, decided to answer. Special ships fall into a few unusual categories. Carriers are the most common ones in the special group. Subs and repair ships also fall into that category of special ships. Accurate. Heavy ships, meanwhile, are generally battleships, battle cruisers, and even some heavy or large cruisers fall into that category. Ki continues while giving Kawakaze a glare. Izuku nods, and then hums. I think I'll focus on a heavy ship for now. Seems like a better option for now. Izuku says before focusing on the cubes again. He thinks about battleships and hopes to connect to those of his homeland. I wonder if I'll be stuck with another girl akin to Kawakaze. Or maybe I'll have one like Ki. Though those cracks from some of the soldiers made it sound like I was trying to get more older sister characters. I'm too young for that. And I don't think I'm into that. Maybe? While this and other thoughts are swimming through Izuku's mind, the cubes light up and start to form into his next new ship. What appears before him is another young-looking girl with fox ears, though with black hair this time and clothing akin to Amiko's. She was quite short, shorter than Kawakaze. However, her rigging was a monster in comparison. Behind her was a massive conning tower, and out to the sides were 4 double-barreled cannons with impressive calibers. While Izuku's head was tilting to the side at the sight of the visual contrast, the fox girl introduced herself. I am called Nagato, flagship of the Sakura Empire's combined fleet. Are you the one known as the commander? I shall bear witness to whether or not you have the ability to unite this world. Nagato says with a young lilt to her voice. Though Izuku had a different thought. She sounds like a little kid. But she talks really old person. Nagato then looks over Izuku a bit more before saying, You are quite young for a commander, sir. Izuku shakes his head before acknowledging her. That is accurate. And it's Izuku. Midoriya Izuku. Nagato nods before noting her companions in the room. She had known Kawakaze in a sense from their shared pasts. But I don't know you. You are quite the imposing battleship yourself. Thank you, Nagato-sama. I am Ki, one of a few planned set of battleships to defend Japan. Nagato nodded, acknowledging one of the last battleship types to be made in Japan. Izuku then brought his newest charge up to speed, including where he would need her. It's probably better if Akashi stayed behind and focused on repairs. That and retrofitting the other ships that don't have shipgirl spirits. I agree, Commander. I will gladly command the rest of the fleet in battle. Nagato says while patting her chest and bowing to Izuku. Izuku coughs before explaining that Ki is the flagship for his fleet. Ki herself is surprised by this and asks Izuku what he meant. You were my first ship, and you are one of the best fighters in the fleet. There's no one else to be the flagship. Izuku says with a small smile. Ki blushes at this and thanks her commander. Off to the side, Nagato nods her head and agrees with his decision. Izuku then decides to introduce the two new girls to Admiral Sujita first. While I'm glad we have new reinforcements for the fleet, please at least run it by me when you are going to do things like summoning more ships, Commander. Izuku rubs the back of his head before apologizing. Then taking the new girls to meet the rest of the fleet. Inko practically melts at the appearance of both girls, finding Nagato especially adorable, and quickly hugging the girl while patting her head. And she is a bit confused when many of the other girls in Izuku's fleet bow to the girl. Am I missing something? Inko asks after seeing Atego go down to one knee to address Nagato. Said small fox puffs out her chest as best she can before saying, I am the manifestation of the soul of the Sakura Empire, the pride and glory of her warrior spirit. As a Big Seven, I am also the symbol of an era. Open your eyes and bask in my radiance. At hearing that, Izuku and Inko's eyes bug out, with most of the older or known historic members confirming what she said. But the mysticism is lost when Nagato says, You may stop basking now, I'm getting a bit sleepy. This makes Izuku laugh a bit before rolling his eyes. Inko smiles as well, and then tries to address Kawakaze. But the girl is just as standoffish as when she first arrived. Don't mind her, Kasan. She's just a bit. Well, she's just kind of prickly. She'll warm up to everyone eventually. Nagara says from the kitchen table. She had been cutting some vegetables to help Inko with dinner. While Akashi had restored her arm easily enough, she needed a bit more time to restore the light cruiser's leg. Before dinner could really start, Izuku decided to go through what he had in mind for later operations and sorties. I want the fleet to patrol the area around here for now. Ki your flagship with Nagato and Shinano as the main fleet. Kawakaze, Atego and Ayanami, you'll be the vanguards. Nagara, you're on reserve for now. And Akashi, I want you to stay back at the base. Not just to repair the others, but to help the other regular ships be brought up to the level they can fight even. While Nagara is a bit saddened at being benched as it were, she does understand what Izuku had in mind. Akashi as well, who was happy to stay behind to tinker with all the new gear on the base. Akashi can make other devices to help everyone, Naya. I have lots of ideas of what to do to boost up firepower and recovery, Naya. The Minty Kitty says with a happy jump from her chair. But Inko then claps her hands to tell the rest to holster work conversations for later. I'll take those veggies, Nagara-chan. It's time for curry. Inko says while picking up the cutting board. After hearing what was being made for dinner, All of the ship girls celebrate. Even Kawakaze's eyes light up at hearing that curry was what was for dinner. All of the girls happily eat when the curry was done, with Izuku liking the cutlet that his mother put on the top of his. Once dinner was done, Kiai once again stayed with the Midoriyas, while Nagato and Kawakaze were shown to 2 empty rooms in the barracks for the night. With the new day, Izuku contacted Himori again. Alongside her was her newest summon. The girl had black hair with wolf-like ears and was wearing a blue sailor uniform. At her side was rigging set up with 4 large double-barreled turrets, and in her left hand was a katana. This is Ashigara. I had to use both cubes, but she should be able to help with covering my heavier ships, Himori said. Izuku nodded before introducing Nagato. I also summoned another destroyer, but she's a bit difficult, Izuku says with an uneasy look on his face. Himori just laughs before saying, so you can handle meeting a siren face to face, but can't deal with one troublesome destroyer? Izuku is about to retort when a new contact appears on the screen. It is mostly static at first, but Izuku ordered the comms text to descramble the signal. It took a minute or two, but they were eventually able to get a visual. Hello, is anyone there? A woman sat on the screen. She appeared to be quite tall and had long blonde hair in a few points upward. Izuku's eyes bug out and he shouts, "You're Star and Stripes, the #1 hero from the S." Upon hearing that, Nagato's eyes widen as well. She hums before saying, I guess it has been quite a while since the war. No reason we might not be allies. It is good to meet you, ma'am. Though I do wonder what this call could be about. Who's the little kid who is talking like she's 80? Star asks. Nagato then puffs her cheeks before Izuku placates the girl. He goes on to explain who Nagato is, as well as explaining he was the commander for the base. Star is wide-eyed at the fact that the little girl was not only a ship, but a battleship. Let alone the fact that Izuku was a commander for his nation's shipgirl forces. Wish we had that luck here on the West Coast. Most everyone in the major cities was killed off in the first wave of attacks. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, all gone. And basically, everyone who lived there too. Star explained while looking down. Himori then asks what she was calling about. One of the comms techs on Star's side explained that they were trying to contact Pearl Harbor. Guess we overshot. A lot. The tech says. Izuku snorts before asking if they had found any cubes during the fights with the sirens. Star raises an eyebrow before bringing out one from one of the sirens she had killed. This thing? Yeah, it's what you'll need to try and summon a ship girl. That's how we managed it. Himori explains. Star looks down at the item before trying to summon a ship herself. But she has no luck. Izuku looks down before saying, I guess that means you aren't meant to be the commander of the ship girls. You'll have to find someone who can, though. Maybe the cubes will direct you. Star sighs before agreeing with the boy. She thanks the two for more information. There's been little communication the last few days here. Whatever those sirens are, they've made it ridiculously hard to contact anyone. We can barely make calls to any part of the S. Hopefully we'll find something. Star says before signing off. The techs again try to reach Pearl Harbor, while Star leaves for the time being. So the cubes decide who gets to call to the ships. Wonder how they could tell me. Star thinks out loud while walking through the damaged military base. While the fighters and other military had managed to help fight off the sirens, most of the heroes had been relegated to evac work and rescue, with herself as an exception. While she is walking by a refugee area on base, she feels the cube get warmer in her hand. She then holds it up and moves it back and forth from the tents nearby. She hums before heading over to the camp. She walks between a few of the tents and giving some autographs to some of the surviving kids and adults, as well as trying to reassure them that they would be safe. She then arrives at a hospital tent, and the cube lights up even brighter. She sighs before going in herself. When she sees the injuries that some of the people have, Her heart feels even heavier. It was our job to protect these people, the heroes and even the military. But we failed because of the enemy we were up against. Hopefully whoever this cube is guiding me to can change that, Star thinks to herself. She meets with a few of the ones who were awake and apologizes for what happened, though some try to reassure her it wasn't her fault. One of the last people she passes, though, the cube lights up more before fading. She passes the thing back and forth a few times to make sure she isn't imagining it. Once she's sure, she doesn't talk to who is there right away. She instead meets with a few others in the hospital and signs some more autographs. When she comes back, though, she decides to test to see if what Izuku had said was true. He is an average-looking man with black hair and what looked like a farmer's tan, given he wasn't wearing a shirt. Though the injured person has it a bit rough at this time. He's currently missing a leg and is just sleeping. So with a sigh, Star clears her throat to get the young man's attention. "Hey, anybody awake?" "Not exactly. I was having a good dream," the young man says with a grunt. He opens his silver eyes, then sits up and swings his remaining leg over the side of the bed. "So, what can I do for the #1 hero of the S?" the man says sarcastically. Star looks down a bit, knowing why he's a bit disgruntled, and asks for the man's name. He introduces himself as John Kodoff. When Star asks what happened to him, he just looks up at the hero in annoyance. "Look, I don't really know the best way to explain this, but I think you could turn the tide for us here. But I'd like to at least know who you are." John just sighs before leaning back a bit. He explained that he and his family had come out to visit his older brother in Los Angeles. "We're a bunch of farmers and oilfield workers. So, when we get a chance, we jump on getting to see something new. We didn't expect this. And now I'm alone," John says while looking down. Star looks down as well, shedding a small tear for what he lost. She apologizes, saying, "If we could, I wish I could have stopped them sooner. I'm sorry for what you lost." Everyone's sorry when they hear that. Doesn't change that they're gone, John says dismissively. Star agrees, but then brings up why she was there. "I have something. It was dropped when I defeated one of the beings who attacked us. We recently got in contact with some from Japan who've managed to fight back. They said these things can call. Well, they can call to those who can fight back against others." John just looks up at her with skepticism before looking at the cube in her hand. "And you think I can summon them? What good would it do?" "It can give us a way to fight back, protect everyone else, and maybe get some vengeance for those who were lost," Star says with a slightly pensive look. John looks back and forth between Star, the cube, and his missing leg. He seems to be thinking it over a bit before sighing. He reaches up and says, "What the hell? What have I got to lose?" Star smiles a bit before handing him the cube. It does nothing at first, even when John focuses on the cube. Star then mentions he may have to calm himself to properly summon something. He just raises an eyebrow at her suggestion, but tries it anyway. He starts to feel something while calming himself. He isn't too sure on what it is, but he can feel someone reaching out, crying about some kind of darkness. "I don't know who you are, but I'm right here. You aren't alone. Let me help you," the man says with his eyes closed in concentration. Star hums a bit at his words, before covering her eyes as the cube lights up. Inside the cube, John feels as if he's reaching into the darkness to pull someone out and grabs onto a hand of the person that seemed to be crying. When the light fades, a woman stands in front of John and Star. She has silver hair and kind blue-gray eyes. Her dress is white and black with an officer's coat over it. That seems to accentuate her breasts, with a blue rose on her chest. On her legs are black pantyhose with blue shoes. And for rigging, she has a solid runway on her right side attached to her back with mechanical parts. On her left is a piece that seems similar to a command tower. "Hello. I am Yorktown, lead ship of the Yorktown class of carriers. Are you? Oh dear. What happened to you? Yorktown says while looking over John. John, meanwhile, is a bit enamored by the woman he had managed to summon. Star, on the other hand, is wide-eyed at what just happened. But then a huge smile breaks out on her face. She laughs a bit before congratulating John. You just gave the West Coast a better chance of fighting against the Sirens. Upon hearing that, Yorktown puts together what happened to John. You've lost quite a bit, haven't you? Yeah, I think I could hear some of. Maybe it was a similar pain to mine when I was calling out to you. John says while looking at his hands. Yorktown smiles before taking his hands in her own. She then smiles at him before saying, "And I thank you for calling to me. Now I have the chance to help you and many others, Commander." At hearing himself being referred to as that, John tries to deny it. Suddenly, though, Star returns with a wheelchair and a few other soldiers from the base. If you don't mind, Commander, we could really use your help. We've got a way to bring in a bit more reinforcements and save more people. The number one hero says before saluting the man. He gives her a look like she's crazy, but Yorktown's presence is enough to convince him to go along with what she has in mind. He stands with a bit of help from Yorktown to sit in the chair. Star and the soldiers then bring him to the command office, while the other refugees look on in confusion, both at John and at Yorktown. So he's the one who managed to summon this girl, eh? Commander Agpar says, while looking over both John and Yorktown. John just sighs before saying, "Yeah, pretty sure the embodiment of the US Yorktown from WW2 standing here confirms that. Oh, no offense, Yorktown." Yorktown just gives him a look akin to a mother scolding her son for being a smartass. Agpar just chuckles at the two's interactions before going back to his desk. It's not much, but we did manage to defeat at least a few of the Sirens, was it? And these were all that was left. The long-headed man then pulls out 3 cubes to show those gathered. Yorktown then nods before saying, "Those are about the only way you'll be able to call till we ship spirits. And if I'm going to fight, well, I would like a bit more help to do it." John chuckles a bit before reaching to grab one of the cubes. But he's not close enough. So instead, Star hands him the cube. He just looks down a bit sheepish, but he tries to focus on the cube to call to a new ally. It takes a minute, but he eventually summons a new shipgirl. She's quite a bit smaller than Yorktown, appearing to look like a young girl. She is wearing a red skirt with a white spaghetti-strapped shirt, with one strap down and a pink jacket over that. Her legs have white stockings and white shoes, and for rigging, she has a single turret on her right side and a quintuple torpedo mount on the left side. In her hands is a small spotlight. She has sleepy red eyes and white hair in 2 wild pigtails, held in place by 2 clips with bunny ear protrusions coming out of them. When she speaks, her voice is a bit monotone and sleepy as well. "Benson-class destroyer, Laffy, awaiting your orders. Commander, these ears aren't real. You don't need to stare at them," Laffy says with a look to both commanders. John, meanwhile, is tilting his head to the side in confusion, but does apologize for staring at Laffy funny. "So, we've got a destroyer now. Well, that's a start. Guess I'll try the next one," John says before wheeling a bit closer to grab the next cube. When he does, he feels a bit more accomplishment due to moving for himself. When he calls to the cube, it lights up quickly and a slightly taller girl appears. While she also has red eyes, her hair is strawberry blonde. She has a confident smirk and a sportier look about her. From her star-spangled socks with tennis shoes, a black skirt on her waist, with a zip-up blue long-sleeved shirt, and a cape over her shoulders, she seems to embody American patriotism. For rigging, she has 2 sections of hull along her sides, with the right side having 2 twin-barreled gun mounts, and the left having 2 triple-barreled guns of a larger caliber. And the first thing she says to her summoner is, "Pleasure meeting you, Commander. I'm Cleveland, a knight of the sea. Come on, time is money. We can't afford to take a break." John just looks at her with a laugh at how excitable she is compared to his previous summon. Not sure you should be saying something like that to someone in my condition, John says with a smirk. That is when Cleveland notices that John is in a wheelchair and missing a leg, and she starts apologizing rapidly. John just asks her to stop after the 20th sorry and grabs the last cube. With this one, he calls out to get some more solid firepower to strike back at the sirens as best they can. What he summons is a tanner young woman with blue-black hair and green eyes, though one is covered by her hair. She is wearing the most revealing attire of the summons so far, being short white shorts and a tight white top with a star on it. On her mostly exposed legs, she has a US Navy tattoo on the left and a black stocking with black straps on her right. For rigging, she has two triple-barreled guns attached to her back mechanically, and is holding a third in her right hand, both hands of which are covered by red gloves that reach up to her elbows. When she speaks, the girl seems a bit more contemplative than the previous two. It is good to meet you, Commander. I'm Northampton, heavy cruiser of the US Navy. Or at least I'm supposed to be a heavy cruiser. John just smiles before holding out a hand to shake with Northampton. And then Cleveland. Laffy, though, just yawns before laying on John's lap, and then promptly goes to sleep. Star, John, and Upgar just look at the situation with confusion, while Yorktown is tittering off to the side. She's always been a bit sleepy, but don't worry, she's plenty capable, Cleveland says with a smile and a bit of a laugh. The humans in the room just shrug their shoulders and move on with matters. Namely, trying to fight back against the suspected next attack of the sirens. They let us off yesterday, but they'll be back, and they'll probably hit this place to cripple the military even more, Upgar says while bringing up a map of the area. Star agrees and asks that the girls help to intercept the sirens before they get that close. I wonder, John says with a scratch of his chin. He then asks the commander to show how the sirens attacked previously. While the other two military members are confused, the ships back him up on wanting to see where they attacked. Star just shrugs and agrees. When the map and path is shown, as well as some video from the attacks, John notices a pattern. It's like they're hunting. They stir up the regular folks who can't fight back the same way, and then wait for their main target to appear. The heroes. John analyzes. Star concurs with that thought, noting, it did seem like they were more interested in causing damage and attacking heroes more than anything. Too bad there aren't many left here. But you are still here, and they may know that you are the number one. And a good way to trick or defeat a hero is to put civilians in harm's way. My guess, they won't be focusing on the arsenal here. They'll go for the refugees, John says while noting some of the places where the sirens attacked earlier. Upgar sees what the younger man is saying, and the two put together some ideas to ambush the sirens with the ships gathered and Star's power. Tomorrow, the US comes fighting back hard, Star says with a slam of one fist into her palm. So this one I wanted to build up a few others that would be involved. As well as introducing a hero I wish Horikoshi hadn't killed off. And the main ship's here. Well, I've got a long-standing love for Yorktown, even before I started playing Azur Lane. Laffy is just adorable, and was my first ship. Cleveland, well aside from being someone to bring up this new Auk, is another ship I quite like. And Northampton seemed like a good heavy cruiser for this early US fleet. Especially since I already put Minneapolis at Pearl Harbor. Please review. I hope this plan works, Commander Upgar, Star says while waiting in Botwa base. Upgar hums a bit before defending the plan he and John had put together. I'm willing to believe some of what he said. If what some of the shipgirls said was true, that the sirens are just out to test humanity, well then the best ones to test in this version of humanity would be the heroes. Star looks down before nodding, noting that it would be a way tell if humans are really capable. Upgar then goes on to mention that she had gone off on small hunches herself to save lives. Star just chuckles a bit before saying, true. I guess I'm just worried. Before I was sure my power, let alone the backup I had from my brothers in arms, would be enough to fight against most threats. But now, after facing off with this alien enemy and failing to stop the destruction and death, I don't want anyone else to go through what John went through. You don't have to worry about me that much, Bates. Or the rest of us refugees. Your buddies did get most of them away. Hopefully this gives us a chance to really fight back against these guys. Kodov says on a separate link. He was currently with the rest of the refugees, who were being shipped further inland away from the San Diego Naval Base. Though he was still kept in the loop thanks to the mobile command center he was stationed in. Star starts pacing after waiting for over an hour and is about ready to head off for the city when she hears an explosion. Don't do it. It's bait. You'll just end up like Cow Lady. I saw some of it after they collapsed a building on me and my family. John says firmly, then with a bit of remorse. He thinks back on the fact that his family and others had been in a department store when the sirens attacked. He was back a little way and wasn't in the main blast radius. Unlike the rest of his family, he saw what remained of his parents and siblings after the attack, as well as the cold look of the horned girl with white hair, and a large metal shark-like construct behind her. Right as he was sure he was done, Cow Lady had appeared and stopped the siren, even helping John to get away after he had gotten the rubble off of his crushed leg. But the siren wasn't alone, and the aging heroine ended up losing her life while trying to save his. She succeeded in getting him to safety, but John can't forget the sight of the gaping hole where the woman's stomach and intestines used to be. With a sigh, John continues with, whoever is leading these sirens here wants to lure heroes away. They want to draw them into impossible situations. At least that's my take on it. Star's eyes widen again as she remembers that Cow Lady was another hero who had tried to save her family back when All Might did the same. And now that woman was dead from these invaders. Okay, I'll trust you. And your girls. Star says while waiting at the refugee area. It doesn't take long before the sirens appear at Botwa Base, and right above the refugee area. Just as John and Upgar anticipated. Well now, it seems that there is one hero with either a brain or a lot of restraint. I thought for sure any hero left would go right for the explosion we set off, and right into the pack I had waiting for them. The high-rank siren emitter says with a mocking tone. This incises Star even more, and she is about ready to engage. But Upgar tells her to stop for a moment. Types like her love to boast. See if you can get her to tell more of what they are after. Upgar says to Star. While it isn't in her usual repertoire, Star does just that while subtly giving herself a new order in case things go south. Okay, this may sound odd, but I'm really curious. What do you all even hope to accomplish with all of this? Why are going to such lengths to test what we heroes can do? Star asks while crossing her arms and glaring up at Emitter. The siren snorts before saying, I suppose it won't matter if I did tell you. Plus, I was impressed at the fact that you managed to defeat some of my clones by yourself. Let's just say the Empress is interested to see if this version of humanity will fare any better than other versions. There have been those who have defeated us, and others who have fallen. But with this world's obsession with those silly, worthless, and insignificant mutations, she wanted to test just how far your reliance on something so stupid and so unneeded would take you. Early predictions put it at you all lasting about, well, a year before you were eliminated. Upon hearing that, Star and all the others listening are shocked. Not just at the predictions, but the way they referred to quirks as worthless or unneeded. This is further exacerbated when Emitter tells that worlds without quirks had fallen much later compared to theirs. I think one where there were no powers of any kind. They did fall, but it took over a decade. Comparatively, these quirks make you all far weaker than any other world. Even those where some powers do exist. Emitter says with a cruel smirk. Star tightens her fist, and then puts all her strength into leaping up and punching Emitter in the face. But the siren's barrier stops the hit, and she as well as her forces take aim at Star. They unleash their beams upon the hero, but she manages to catch them in time. I had a feeling you'd be using lasers, so I made sure to be ready. Star shouts before making a new order to reform the caught beams into a spear, which she uses to take out a clone, but she misses the second, and then promptly gets shot from behind by the cannons on Omitter's rigging. Not bad, hero, Omitter says before tail smacking Star through a wall with her shark rig. She then orders her copies to start attacking the camp. She floats toward Star again and mocking what she and the rest of the heroes stood for. Star interrupts her though by saying, "Don't think it'll be that easy. We heroes, even weak ones like you say our quirks make us, can still inspire others, as well as giving them a bit of hope to try something new." As she finishes saying this, from the sky, a squad of Heldiver bombers dive down and attack the clones gathered, quickly destroying 5 in the first pass. Then the Wildcat fighters come in next and clear out the few Siren fighters overhead, and fire some rockets into the crowd of Siren clones. This shocks Emitter, who then gets sucker punched by Star before being blasted by Northampton and Cleveland. "We got your back, Kate," Cleveland says with a confident smirk. Star smiles back before giving Cleveland a thumbs up. "Hey, wait. Where's Laffy? Is she sleeping?" Star asks before catching another laser to throw back at the Sirens. Both Northampton and Cleveland give nervous laughs before a Siren clone comes flying at them. With a caved-in head, Star's eyes are wide, and when she turns back toward the camp, she sees Laffy going to town on the clones. She leaps up at one point, using E-cannon to propel herself upward before kicking one clone across the face. She then takes 2 torpedoes out of her rig and chucks them precisely into the cannons 2 clones were about to fire. The resulting explosion leaves nothing of the clones, and Laffy isn't done. The little destroyer uses her spotlight to blind another clone close to the ground before getting up close and kneeing the clone in the stomach. And while it is bent over, Laffy takes aim with her turret and fires at the Siren's face, which just leaves a headless Siren. Laffy then runs to the water dodging shots and beams from the Sirens. While still having a sleepy look on her face, she fires off a few torpedoes at the Sirens in the bay, while also shooting up into the air to knock down any Siren planes or clones. When a few more get close to the water, Laffy takes out 2 more torpedoes and rushes toward the clones. She nimbly dodges their beams before getting close and kneeing one in the face. And then she uses her torpedoes as makeshift bats and bashes around 2 more clones before turning her turret to engage 1 more, and then firing off her remaining 3 torpedoes in her launcher. The long-range fire takes out 2 clones and a full-sized ship before she kicks and bashes the first 3 engaged a few more times. She then shoves 1 torpedo into a dazed Siren's mouth, and the other torpedo up another one's. Well, it's somewhere you wouldn't want it to be. And the third she gets behind and snaps its neck. Star's jaw is on the ground as well as feeling a bit inadequate. Where the hell did that come from? Well, it has to do with her history. She was a fighting ship to her end after all, even against opponents that she should have been outmatched by. Northampton says before getting up close herself and engaging as many of the clones as she could. She uses her right-hand cannon as a bit of a shield before kicking 1 Siren across the face, and blasting it with all of her cannons. Cleveland, meanwhile, takes a bit more of an acrobatic approach to the fight, and does a spinning flip into the air before shooting at different angles to strike the Sirens on the ground, while also using a special barrage to clear the air for more of Yorktown's fighters and bombers to hit the ships and Sirens gathered. When she gets up close, though, she takes more of a boxer's stance and bullet punches a few in the face. It stuns the gathered Sirens enough to let Cleveland lay into them with her guns again. Star shakes off the shock of the way the shipgirls were fighting and does her best to keep up with them, even jumping on top of some of the flying Sirens and aircraft to attack or throw them into each other, while the few other soldiers who were in the surrounding region also engaged the Siren ships with whatever ordnance they had. Apgar and John have just been watching the whole matter with a mix of intrigue and excitement. Upgar is happy that Star and the ship girls appear to be winning, while John is impressed by the way some of them fight. Especially Laffy. Didn't think that sleepy little bunny had that in her. John says with a chuckle. As he's watching though, he has a bad feeling growing in the back of his mind. He then asks the driver of the mobile command center to take him to just inside of the city of San Diego. While the soldiers are confused, they go along with it since they were told to follow John's orders. I hope I'm just being paranoid, John thinks to himself as they head into the town. Yorktown, meanwhile, had been waiting closer to Los Angeles when the Sirens first arrived. She launched her first wave of fighters and bombers after the explosion. Star had been tempted to investigate, under John's orders. It took her about half an hour to reach the main battlefield, and the ship girls as well as the soldiers and Star were starting to feel exhausted. But now that she was much closer, she could use something special to help her comrades. Now then, I think it's time for some vengeance, Yorktown says with a smile. She sneaks up behind a few clones and quickly sucker punches and kicks the two down to the water. She then launches a wave of bombers at the two below her before jumping onto one of the aircraft she had launched earlier. She then rides the plane into the main battlefield before launching more planes to engage the enemies. When Star and Cleveland had been knocked back again by the original emitter, Yorktown came out of nowhere and kamikazed the plane she was riding on into the Siren. Once emitter was reeling from the hit, Yorktown spun around and back kicked the Siren across the face, before drop kicking the top of her head, right into Star, who unleashes the strongest punch she can again. But unlike before where the Siren's barrier stopped her, Star connected cleanly to emitter's face, seemingly breaking the Siren's nose. Damn it. I wasn't expecting this. You ship girls weren't supposed to be here, emitter says while wiping the blood from her face. Meanwhile, Laffy, Northampton, and the sailors and soldiers managed to clean up the rest of the clones and ships emitter had gathered. The high-ranked Siren looks around in panic and annoyance at her plans being derailed, let alone the fact that there were no civilians at the base at all. Her rigging picks her up again as she looks over all the gathered enemies in one place. She grits her teeth before saying, I was only going to use this if some heroes showed up there, but I can still leave some lasting damage. Emitter then shows a detonate command with her rigging and then presses the holographic button. Right as it does, a countdown of about 5 seconds is shown. A wicked smile grows on Emitter's face as the countdown goes down. All of the human side's eyes are wide with worry now, as they have no idea where the possible bomb the emitter placed was. But just as the countdown reaches 0, the explosion doesn't happen in the city. Instead, a large explosion that would have taken out at least 5 city blocks is seen out at sea. Okay, glad I went with a large boost before doing that, John says while laying on the sidewalk in the city. When his group reached the city, he told the men to check for abnormal frequencies, anything that could be receiving or transmitting a signal. John orders before asking for a crutch. When sensors pick up something odd, John tells the men to head for the source. When they arrived, they found the initial blast site, as well as a large device sitting in the crater. One of the soldiers commented, "If that isn't a bomb, I'll pay out $1,000 to the next guy who walks into the barracks." While most of his comrades and John give him a flat look, they do agree with the man. They think about calling in the bomb squad to disarm the weapon as they get a closer look at the device. But as they are inspecting it, the device suddenly lights up. Sensing trouble, John orders the men to get away. He then leaps forward, grabbing the device and activating his quirk, Maximize. I'll have to go 100 times most likely, John thinks to himself while he balances on his one leg before spinning and chucking the bomb out to the ocean. He of course falls down afterwards, but he succeeded in stopping the destruction of part of San Diego. What the hell, man? What the heck kind of quirk do you have? How come you're not a hero? A few of the soldiers asks as they help John get up again. Once he has his crutch back, and is walking back to the mobile command center, he answers a few of the questions. My quirk is, well, I just call it maximize. I can amp my strength and physical abilities to certain levels. What I did there was max my strength 100 times what it naturally is. I can probably go higher, but I've never really tried. Didn't want to. And yes, it does affect my durability, but I didn't think I'd need it active when I got crushed under the rubble. John explains first. He then goes on to tell them that he never wanted to be a hero or anything like that. He just enjoyed his life on the farm back home. He'd be up for adventures for a period of time. But I don't like the idea of having to fight idiots who think their quirks mean that they can do whatever they want. Or that they have to make some flashy spectacle that other idiots can be the audience for. When John explains that measure to his thinking, a few of the soldiers do see his point. Especially at the fact that he'd be having to fight various idiots every single day most likely. I think I get what you mean, man. Plus, you don't seem to enjoy the city life that much. You're just you're a good old boy from the farm. I'm not too dissimilar, since I'm from a farm in Nebraska. Name's Chester or Chet. The now named Chet says to John before holding out his hand to shake. John takes it with a bit of a smile. He then tells the men to head back to base. Upon seeing her bomb threat thwarted, Omitter is even more livid. But now she has more issues with the fact that all of her enemies are still nearby, and now she has no distraction to pull their attention. Well now, what do you think, Yorktown? Should we let Star and the soldiers finish this one? Or do we turn her over to Laffy? Cleveland says with a smirk. Laffy meanwhile had been napping slightly while standing. But upon hearing Cleveland mention her, she wakes up with a little yawn, and then pulls out 2 of her torpedoes and swings them around like bats. Well, I have to say that was more impressive than I thought it would be. Especially that wild card in the city. Seems we'll have to reevaluate some of our plans, is heard above the base. Once again, Tester appears to help her failed sister. Upon seeing her, the shipgirls quickly fire on her with the soldiers following suit. But her barrier protects her for the most part, and she fires back with a beam barrage. Star catches the few shot her way and sends them back at the Siren, but it distracts the rest to give Omitter more time to recover. The beaten Siren then flips off the whole group before disappearing into the portal, while Tester titters at her colleague's attitude. Oh, before I go, consider this a special reward for that broken hero, or whatever he calls himself. He was more interesting than I believed. Tester says before summoning a pair of wisdom cube in her hands. She then drops them before warping away. With that done, the battle with the Sirens in the US comes out with a standing victory. When John and his crew make it back to base, they are greeted with celebrating and cheers, with his fleet of girls happily reporting the defeat of the Siren invasion. But the cheers start anew when Chet and a few of the others reveal that John had been the one who chucked the bomb out into the ocean. While most of the soldiers and Star are amazed at what John had done, his fleet quickly comes up and checks him over, with Yorktown hugging him tightly. That was reckless. What if you didn't have a power to stop it? What if you didn't find it, and it went off with you in the blast radius? What if? I know. But I did have something to do about it. And if I didn't do it, they would have made it seem like our victory had a price to pay. I didn't feel like letting them have that. John says with a slightly confident look in his eyes, one that makes Yorktown blush. Upon seeing this, some of the soldiers are quick to wolf whistle at the interactions of the two. But the cough of Commander Upgar brings back the attention to the battle. Well done, all of you. We've managed to win a major victory this day. Thanks to all of our soldiers here, Star and Stripes, and of course the shipgirls Yorktown, Laffy, Cleveland, and Northampton. Let alone the summoning, command, and apparently power of Commander John Kodoff. Upgar says, and the soldiers cheer again. He does bring it down a bit to say that they still have work to do, and more battles ahead. With that, the soldiers head back to clean up after the battle. while Northampton and Laffy go out to collect shards to help build a new set of cubes. Though Ipgar isn't sure about trusting the cubes that Tester dropped. I don't think we have to worry about as much as we may think. You said Omitter called her Tester, right? My guess. She's just wanting to see what kind of havoc she can build up for later battles, including giving her enemies a leg up. John says with a grimace. Star nods before noting that Tester seemed intrigued by her when she caught the beams and threw them back. So, she most likely gets a kick out of watching battles unfold. Star says with a grimace of her own. Ipgar just sighs because he knows John will probably use the cubes no matter what he says. When Northampton and Laffy return, they have enough shards to make 3 more cubes. Now it's just up to your luck, Commander. Northampton says with a nod. John returns the gesture and takes up a cube. Yorktown, though, stops him to mention the pattern for ship types. You might want to try for a heavier ship. No offense, Northampton, but we could use some battleship muscle. Yorktown says, and two agree. Not Laffy, though. She's sleeping off to the side. John just hums before taking a second cube and gripping them tight. The light flashes from the cubes, and when they fuse together into a new ship, the girl is quite a bit different from the ones summoned before. What stands out first are the 3 large triple-barreled turrets beside and behind the girl. She is tall with a dark tan, silver-white hair, and red eyes once again. Under her eyes, though, are a pair of black lines, akin to war paint or eye black for athletes. She is wearing a black bikini top, with a white tube top that has the letters album on it. Around her hips are tight black shorts, while her stomach has more of the black lines on it. On her legs, she is wearing tight black stockings with tennis shoes under that. Around her shoulders is a white, black, and teal jacket that appears very tattered from various battles. And in her hands is a massive weapon that looks akin to a reaper's scythe. When she speaks up, she is very calm compared to what John was expecting. Given her sporty appearance, let alone being a battleship, I thought I'd be dealing with another Cleveland. John thinks while the girl introduces herself. I'm Alabama, 4th ship of the South Dakota class, also known as Lucky A. Alabama says with a monotone expression. Most of the humans gathered are a bit intimidated by the girl, though. Especially after getting a good look at the scythe she was carrying. John, though, just nods before welcoming the girl. Okay, this time, I'm going for a little more air power. We were known for that back in the day after all. John says while taking 2 cubes again. He concentrates again, and when the cubes are done with the light show, Northampton and Yorktown are shocked at who was summoned. The girl this time had blonde hair tied up in 2 pigtails. Atop her head was a black and yellow cowboy hat. Draped from her shoulders is a large black coat with yellow lines, while her breasts are covered by a black bikini top. For pants, she has tight black jean shorts, and she has black knee-length boots on her feet. She has a confident smile and mischievous light in her green eyes. Just like Yorktown, she has a runway on her right side. But unlike what had seemed like standard aircraft on Yorktown's rig, she had huge B-52 bombers on the runway. Yo, I'm Hornet. I don't want to impose, but don't call me Big Wasp, and we'll be fine. My sisters are both legendary. But just wait and see what I can do, Hornet says with a big smile. And then suddenly both Northampton and Yorktown jump on her with big hugs. John and Star both chuckle, with Star especially happy. Kinda reminds me of my sister, Star says. Cleveland pats Star on the back, saying she knows it well too. I'm a big sister as well, so I know what it means to care for and worry about your younger siblings, the lead ship of the Cleveland class says. Well, maybe I'll summon one of your sisters this next time, 'cause I've only got 1 cube left, John says while grabbing the last cube. The ship that comes out, though, is not a Cleveland class. The ship that appears is a redhead with blue-teal eyes. She's a bit shorter than Cleveland, and is wearing a black shirt under a white and red shirt and blue skirt for clothing. On her legs are black garter belt stockings and loafers for her shoes. Her rigging, meanwhile, is much smaller compared to the last 2, but seems to be gunslinger focused. Both sides have 3 twin-barreled turrets, and they seem to be controlled from pistol-like protrusions from the gear. Her general attitude just seems extra happy and is expressed with, "Hello, I'm San Diego, the cruiser who earned the most stars in World War II. Hee hee, that's it for my introduction. I'm just too good," San Diego says with a little wink. Well, that seems very convenient. We just saved San Diego, and now we have the spurt of San Diego in both ship and maybe city form, Star says with a little laugh. Apgar though sees all of this as a very good omen going forward. Commander Kadov, we'll get you set up with more of a proper commission with the military, as well as getting you a new leg, Apgar tells John before saluting the man. Star's buddies from her unit then catch up and say that they'll be celebrating tonight. And all the girls are invited too. Though maybe we shouldn't have ones like Laffy. Right as one of the guys is saying that, Laffy swipes the bottle he had behind himself and downs the whole thing. Not bad. Could go for something stronger, Laffy says with another yawn. This just gets everyone laughing and ready to celebrate the first big victory for the US in the Siren War. Hope you guys like this new setup. Also, to the guest and the others who like this story, please give some of my other stories a read. Especially Justice Across Space and Time. I've been working on that one and Heroes to Hunters for a very long time. That aside, anybody have a suggestion for a secondary fleet on the West Coast? I've been thinking on adding Baton as one of the ships, as well as maybe the combo of Washington and South Dakota. Though if anyone has some other suggestions, I'll look them over and maybe add them to the fleets. Please review.